Hello, everybody. Here we are once again, and we are studying the life of Elisha right now and the other courageous people that he crossed his paths with along the way. Today is another interesting story, and we are in 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 1. And this story is going to be about an army commander and a young servant girl and Elisha and some of Naaman's officers. And all of these had to be brave in some way for this story to happen. Now, King of Aram had great admiration for Naaman. Naaman was the commander of his army, and because through him, the Lord had given Aram great victories. So he had the favor of God. Naaman brought the favor of God and caused his king to win many victories. Naaman was a mighty warrior, but he suffered from a disease called leprosy. Leprosy is a very contagious skin disease. So it was a really awful thing to have. And at this time, the Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. So this young girl had been taken away from her family, her country, and she was forced to work as a slave, basically. She was a maid. And one day the girl said to her mistress, "I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." So first of all, this young maid who had been stolen from her family, stolen from her country, and forced to work for Naaman's wife, she was very courageous, but she obviously believed in God, and she believed in the prophet of Samaria, which we know to be Elisha. And so she spoke up and told Naaman's wife about Elisha the prophet, and that her husband Naaman could be healed. So the wife tells Naaman, and Naaman goes to tell the king what the young girl from Israel had said. So the king of Aram said, "Go and visit the prophet. I will send a letter of introduction for you to take to the king of Israel." So Naaman started out carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. So I did a little research to see what that would cost today. What would be the value of that silver today? And it would be $324,000, $324,985.60. And the gold would be $4,012,032.64. So Naaman took a huge gift to give to Elisha. So when the king of Israel got the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, "This man sends me a leper to heal? Am I God that I can give life and take it away? I can see that he's just trying to pick a fight with me." So the king of Israel is very upset. It's like, how can we make this healing happen for Naaman, right? But look in verse 8. What do you think Elisha's response is going to be? It's not going to be fear. The king was in fear. Elisha speaks up in courage. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, he sent his message to him. "Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel." Do you think Elisha was just confident in himself? No, He was confident in God because he had seen God work miracle after miracle, and he knew that he could hear from God and that God is the healer. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with a message. Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of your leprosy. Well, that sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Don't you think Naaman would be excited to go do that? No. Naaman was a warrior. And I think he was a little proud because he was very angry. And he stalked away and he said, I thought he would certainly come out to meet me, he said. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana, and the Pharpar river better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in rage. So Naaman was rather prideful. He was thinking that Elijah would come out and speak to him personally and, da da da. Something so simple. Then his officers have to be courageous as well as the young girl and Elisha, because they go to Naaman when he's angry and tell him, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? He's the commander of army. He's very brave. So you should certainly obey him when he says simply go and wash and be cured. So they talked sense into Naaman, and Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him. And his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child's, and he was healed. Then Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. So Naaman became a believer. It's not possible to be healed from leprosy except by a supernatural act of God. But Elisha replied, as surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept any gifts. And though Naaman urged him to take the gift, Elisha refused. He didn't want to be paid for doing something that God had told him to do. Then Naaman said, all right, but please allow me to load 2 of my mules with earth from this place, and I will take it back home with me. From now on, I will never again offer burnt offerings or sacrifices to any other god except the Lord. So Naaman became a believer because a young servant girl was brave enough to mention that he could be healed, because she knew that the God of Israel was the one true God and Elisha represented him. Isn't that awesome? So even sometimes God chooses to use children. You can hear from God. So never think that you're not important enough for God to talk to. God wants to use you, even in adult lives, even besides just your own life. He may tell you something very important to say. So always trust in God and be courageous. Okay, have a wonderful day. See you again soon.